As most of you are watching, know the YMP Awards recognizes two professionals, a male and a female under the age of 40 in the mining industry, who over the past year and during the course of their career have demonstrated exceptional leadership skills and innovative thinking. And this interview with Kelly is just about getting to know her a bit more. So Kelly, thank you for sitting down for this interview. Let's just dive in as how do you start your career in mining?
Sure. So I did my undergrad in geology at UBC, but I actually did my first year in environmental toxicology, and then decided I didn't want to spend my life in a lab, and took some time off and lived in Banff for a year, and had a lot of fun in Banff, but I also kind of discovered a love for the mountains and rocks and gemstones. I grew up in southern Ontario, so I didn't really have access to that. Fell in love with hiking and really all aspects of geology, and that's how I decided to go into geology at the University of British Columbia. And then I did field work for several years in the mining industry. I decided rather quickly that it wasn't the life for me to be constantly in the field. While I loved traveling, I really didn't enjoy being at the mine site 24/7, especially when you're a young geologist. It's a lot of core logging. So someone had suggested investor relations to me. I had no idea what investor relations was at the time, but they said, it's okay, you're a geologist, you've got a technical background, so you can learn about the corporate business side of the industry. And so I did my first role, I think when I was 25 in IR, and I loved it, and I felt it was a much better fit for me. It still allowed me to travel, which is really my main passion in life, is traveling. But it also got me to use my people skills and interact with others and investors and still tell the story of geology and still, get to use my geological skills. But it's just really a much better fit for me. And I always try and encourage young people when I'm at mining conferences, especially geologists and geological engineers, to take a look at IR because maybe it would be a better fit for them. I'm always trying to pull them over to my side.
Great. And you definitely had a successful career so far. But again, it's very personal. So what comes to mind when we talk about success and what it means to be successful?
Sure. So I think success for me is accomplishing a goal, something that I'm proud of, something that I've put my mind to. I guess I would say the biggest successes in my career is helping to found and start the British Columbia Regional Mining Alliance, which is a partnership between industry, First Nations partners, and mining companies. And I did that with my time at Skeena. I'm extremely proud of that. So I think success is really accomplishing something that means something to you, and reaching your goals. When I think of successful people in our industry, I'm always blown away, of course, by Eira Thomas and also Catherine McLeod. So, of course, being a young woman in the industry, I really look up to what I would consider pretty baller females. They've had quite a successful career in the industry, and I think any woman who's willing to take on a CEO or chairman of a board role in such a male-dominated industry is pretty impressive on my list. So, I something I strive for in my career as well. In terms of success, and hopefully something I can look forward to in the future as well.
No, that's well said. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And I know you mentioned Eira and Catherine, but is there anyone else, could be more than one person, that you look up to in the industry?
So I would say one of the people I look up to and my first real mentor in the industry was from that very first role I had in investor relations. It was my VP of exploration, who was also a director. His name's Kelly Earle. He works with Kinross now. He's a geologist. At the time, we worked for two juniors with assets in Mongolia and Nevada. So that was really my forte into the world of IR. And Kelly was always a huge supporter of mine, really taught me not only how to look at the business side of geology, but how to look at the business world of the mining industry as a whole, because I had no experience with that. He's always been a huge supporter I really believe it's because of Kelly that I stuck it out in IR in the mining space. It's not always easy being a young woman in the mining space, but Kelly was hugely supportive and just genuinely a really good person, well respected in the industry. And that's kind of what I emulated my career after. So shout out to Kelly.
And what advice would you give your 20-year-old self?
So I would definitely say take your undergraduate degree a little bit more seriously. Take more business courses. As an example, if you're a geologist or perhaps an engineer, take some courses in sciences that you might be interested in. If you're a business student, I think my electives, I took courses that did not necessarily have anything to do with my future career choices. I may have perhaps taken the easy way out with some of my elective courses. So I'd say, even if it seems hard at the time, especially in your undergraduate career, study things that you think will help you in the future. Business courses, I think, should be mandatory for all science students, and it's unfortunate that they're not. So I think that's a huge piece of advice I would give to young people, is take the courses that are harder, but you know that will add more value to your life in the future.
That's a good advice. That's such a good point. And then I guess on a similar tangent, what it takes, like you have your own company, so now you're running the show, but what do you think it takes to be a good leader?
So I always think of a leader as someone that I could look up to. When I think of being a leader, I always think about what kind of boss would I want to work for? You know, who would I want to learn from and lead and follow into the future? And that's, for me, what it means to be a good leader, is making sure that it's someone I would want to follow. And then I guess the other thing is really taking responsibility for all aspects of your leadership role, getting down and dirty with the parts of the job that you might not be particularly good with, especially if you're running your own company. You really need to know the ins and outs of the entire company, get to know all your employees, all your staff, spend time with everyone. I think that's the number one thing that makes leaders better. And it's always unfortunate when you see leaders that don't really know all aspects of the company. So I think that's the number one thing I would say, is get to know all aspects of the company and think about how you would want to be led. Because I try and think about that a lot with my employees, especially in this age of post-COVID and trying to find a bit more work-life balance. I think it's really important to think about particularly one's mental health. You know, perhaps the pace at which you were working before COVID is not the new normal and not the new pace at which you should be working, and should take time and allow your employees to take time that they need to have work-life balance, work out, take the breaks when they need them. And it'll make you a better leader in the end, and it'll make your employees, I think, you want to follow you more and be stronger at working in the end as well.
Okay, this one is a bit more personal, and it may have changed now that you have your company or even post-COVID, but I think it's an interesting one. Do you have a morning routine?
So I think a lot of people are going to find this surprising, because I've spent the majority of my career doing investor relations in the West Coast time zone, but I am not a morning person. I am more of an afternoon, evening person. So in terms of a morning routine, I really get up and go. I just really get up and start my day. My routine comes later in the day. I'd like to try and work out at lunchtime. I think it's really important to take a break for your body and your mind in the middle of the day, no matter how busy you are. I know it's impossible sometimes. It feels impossible, but I think my routine comes more by giving myself a mental break, or at the end of the day, take a dog for a walk, go with a walk for a friend, get outside. I think that's one of my key pieces of advice, is working out and getting outside. I'm fortunate enough to live in Vancouver, by the mountains and the ocean. It's the best thing for my mental health that makes me better at working, is taking a break in nature. But no, a specific morning routine is not something that I have.
But that's a really good and honest answer. I love it. Yes. And then circling back a bit more professional or personal, but do you have any plans you can share with us for 2023?
So I don't have any specific plans in 2023 that I can share. I would say I'm at a bit of a transitional moment in my career, which is kind of exciting. I'm looking, I guess, a bit for the next thing and how I'm going to grow from here. I've really enjoyed investor relations thus far in my career, but I really do want to grow from investor relations and look at the next thing. So I have a couple of things in mind, perhaps looking at a couple board seats, things like that. So nothing concrete, but hopefully looking to kind of launch into that next step of my career in 2023.
Exciting. Good luck with that.
Thank you.
Any last piece of advice before we wrap up that you'd like to give to our YMP audience who are listening?
So I guess for the younger people listening in the audience, I've really network and get to know people that you want. I never really had a female mentor when I was younger in my career. I had a lot of geologists that I looked up to, but I was great, but I never had a female mentor. And I think that's something that I regret. So I would say, don't be afraid to reach out if you're younger to people that you admire or that you look up to and reach out to them. I think you'd be surprised. A lot of people are willing to give you some time. Be cautious of their time. I mean, don't ask them to a long lunch. Find out if they're at a conference and you can meet them for 15 minutes or a coffee next time they're in town. But I'd say, even if it's a little outside your comfort zone, reach out to people that you look up to, that you think you could learn from in the industry, because I think it's extremely valuable to have mentors and people that you can talk to, because this is not always the easiest industry to be in. There's ups and downs, the markets don't always agree. It can be challenging being young in this industry. It can be challenging being female in this industry. I can imagine it could be challenging being a person of a different color in this industry. So I would say definitely look for mentors and reach out to them and look for a support network that can help you.
Really good. I fully agree. Thank you so much, Kelly, for this interview, for taking the time to speak to our audience. For everyone listening, the awards will be presented at the YMP Award cocktail on the Saturday, March 4th, starting at 5 p.m. at the Shangri-La in downtown Toronto, just kickoff of the PDAC conference. So if anyone is interested, just find us online and you can buy our tickets. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Bianca.